Hello everyone, you are very welcome to Music Network's Professional Development Series for December 2022, Taking Charge of Your Performance Career, Developing Essential Skills. My name is Sarah Ledwidge and we're delighted to welcome Eibhlín Gleeson for the second talk of this series, which is titled Presenting Yourself, Building Your Network in the Music Industry. Just before I introduce Eibhlín, I want to mention that the session today is being recorded and will be made available to view on our YouTube channel in the new year. The recording is set to active speaker view, so viewers of the recording will only see the active speaker at any time. We hope this will encourage you to keep cameras on wherever possible. It's much nicer for speakers to speak to people's faces rather than to blank screens. Please do stay muted though, unless you're asking a question. If you'd like to ask a question, please raise a hand at any point. If you prefer, you may type a question into the chat box, but we would prefer a dialogue ideally. And to let you know, there will be some participation in this workshop and opportunities to practice networking skills. So Eibhlín Gleeson has extensive experience as a senior arts manager over 20 years. Having started her career as a musician, she is now a key figure in Ireland's artistic landscape. She was the CEO of Ireland's flagship professional choir, Chamber Choir Ireland, and developed her own arts management company, EMG Arts Management. In 2015, she became CEO and Artistic Director of Cork Opera House, a position which she still holds today. Throughout her tenure at Cork Opera House, she founded the Cork Opera House Concert Orchestra, the Right Here, Right Now Festival, established a concert series, and produced some of Ireland's largest shows. Eibhlín has a BMOS from UCC and is a former fellow of the Kennedy Center's DeVos Institute of Arts Management in Washington, D.C. She was instrumental in establishing a new arts management and creative producing master's degree in UCC, where she teaches on an ongoing basis. Over to you, Eibhlín.
Thank you, Sarah. Good morning, everybody. It's lovely to see you all, and thank you for joining us today. So this is going to be, I suppose, quite a participatory workshop. So if you guys are comfortable, I'd like to call on you because I do see this as a networking opportunity. So we might as well start as we mean to go on. A networking opportunity for me, certainly, and also for everybody who is good enough to attend today. Sarah, thank you for the lovely introduction and for the lovely welcome. It's always nice to meet professional musicians, and I have the great privilege of working with a lot of professional musicians in my current job and in previous jobs. And in fact, Sarah was somebody I worked with many moons ago when she was a singer with the chamber choir. So it's, you know, something that I value greatly, and musicians always keep me honest and keep me I suppose, put it to me to be better at my job. Because I certainly take my role very seriously as somebody who provides employment opportunities for professional musicians. So with that said, it's really great to meet you all. We might start by introducing ourselves, if that's okay. So maybe just let's do a little round the room and see who's with us today. And just, I suppose, introduce yourself and tell me what does networking mean to you? Do you hate it? Do you love it? Do you thrive on it? Do you dread it? I'd love to hear from you just a little bit about how you feel about it. So who will we start with? Sharon, you're right here beside me. Can I call on you first?
Yeah, sure. Morning. Good to see you, Eibhlín. I'm an opera singer. I'm a mezzo-soprano. I changed careers about 15 years ago after training to be a PE teacher and teaching for a few years. Networking, it kind of terrifies me with people that I don't know, because you don't know kind of where, you know, what the person thinks of you or boundaries of that. With people that I've been working with for a long time, I love I don't see networking as a kind of a horrible thing. It's like, you know, you go to a concert and you see people afterwards and you know them and you've worked with them and you can kind of chat about kind of lovely creative things that like you're doing or that might work with their plans in the future. So it's kind of like there's two tracks for it in my head, I guess.
Brilliant. Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. And we'll address some of those things. I have a little top tips list for you guys that I put together that will help, because I mean, I didn't say this as part of my own introduction, but I'm not a huge fan of networking. I've always found it very difficult, in particular networking in a room full of people that you don't know. So I have developed strategies on how to manage it. So we'll come to some of that in a little while, Sharon. Lovely to see you, Sharon. Thanks a million. I'm just going to call on people if that's okay. Claire, you're there next. Are you happy to talk to us?
Yes, well, with my dog, excuse me.
Good.
He's quiet mainly. Oops. Maybe I'll go after somebody
Sure.
else. Just
Shelby, no problem.
deaf.
Claire. No problem, Claire. I'll come back to you. Shelby, are you happy to join us? Okay, I'll move on. Fiona.
Hi, Eibhlín. Yeah, it's strange. I studied business and languages, and I worked in companies for a number of years, and I've just come back to music in the last few years. So a bit like, I guess, I haven't really come to many music network talks, a bit like Sharon, if I know the people, and they know me, I feel comfortable. But if it's going into people who maybe music industry professionals who've known each other for a number of years, I find it a bit intimidating. So, but I think it's just probably in my own head, and like just getting to know, obviously people, and that way, and just finding what I have in common, and of that kind of thing.
They certainly are some of the most intimidating rooms to be in, so you wouldn't be alone in that, Fiona. But there are little strategies, I think, that we can find to help, I suppose, give you ways of managing the situation that you find yourselves in when you're trying to.
And it's funny because I used to work in a company, a very well-known company with, very big people. And actually, I used to find sometimes they were easier to deal with, because they had a flat hierarchy. So I guess it's like everything, you never know. Everywhere is different, and you're just trying to, I appreciate that. That's great. Thank you.
And often I think when we work in an industry where we are so passionate about the work that we do, and actually our currency is like talent and passion, it's very different to working in a corporate industry where you just have to work hard and be good at your job. Like it's different when you're so emotionally and personally.
Yeah. And actually, I said to someone, sorry to interrupt you, but
No
I was
problem.
working behind the scenes.
Yeah.
And which I actually didn't realize. I was only speaking to someone there recently. I said, actually, that's kind of the issue I have, is I think learning better skills to, having myself up and center. And anyway, that's great.
Great. Thank you so much for that, Fiona. Tom, are you happy to join us there?
How are you doing? Nice to be here. Nice to meet you all. Sorry, I've got a little toddler who's trying to get into the room at times as well. So she's I want to give daddy a kiss. I'm a musician living up in Kinvara near Galway. Guitarist, steel guitar, and singer. Just completed an MA in songwriting at UL.
You froze there on this time.
Can you hear me okay?
Yeah, we can hear you now again. Yeah.
Yeah, just so I've just finished an MA down at UL in songwriting. I'm performing over 20 years. I've got 5 solo albums out. I have another one coming out this week, and I've spent the last kind of 7 years playing a lot with other people's bands. So I've just got 2 albums out this year, but that's first time because for the last 7 years I've been working more on other people's projects, and it's just kind of getting back in the scene and putting my own name out there. And in order to do the work, I've had some really nice shows recently, but I would like to sustain that a bit more. And it's also just after being out of the scene of pushing under my own name for 7 years, how things have changed, and and you lose contacts who you've had or who you worked with, and trying to dip my toe back in. So
Yeah. Yeah, and when you're putting your own name out there, again, it's coming back to this, you're vulnerable in that, or it can be quite a vulnerable thing to do. So I suppose it's great that you're here today, Tom, and good luck with the album release this week. That's a big week for you.
okay, yeah.
Yeah, but hopefully we can give you some I suppose some space today to think about how you might go out there and present yourself in that. So I'll move on to Chloe.
Hi everyone. I'm sorry, my voice is not really working properly today. But yeah, my name is Chloe. I did a BMOS in the School of Music down in Cork a few years ago. And then went into teaching, and now find myself looking back at the arts again. And so I'm looking to do something in arts and cultural management. I've actually moved to Paris recently, so I'm trying to kind of build a network for myself here and in Ireland. And kind of like everyone's been saying, it's it's much easier to make connections and network, like if you're doing a project together, or if you're just chatting to people, like, as it comes up naturally. Like I found, like, trying to network, like using, like, reaching out to people you talk to twice on LinkedIn and stuff, it's really, really hard. It doesn't come to me naturally. So yeah, I would really like some advice with that, especially if you've been out of the space for a few years.
Yeah, of course.
Trying to build all that back up is challenging for sure, or in a new country. So
Great, Chloe. It's lovely that you're here. I think we know each other, don't we?
we do. We did Faust together a few years ago.
Sang in an opera chorus together, so it's lovely to see you again, Chloe. And again, how lovely that we're here in a networking event together. So,
exactly, that's what I'm about.
Small world, and I think that's what you find. The more, I mean, Ireland is a small place anyway, but the more you put your stuff out there, the easier it'll get, because the more you realize how actually small the pool of people is.
Internationally, it's quite small.
It is quite small everywhere. And thank you for joining us all the way from Paris, Chloe. And I hope you get something from this. Fiona Kennedy.
Hi, Eibhlín. Hi, everybody. Lovely to meet you. I'm based in Cork. I'm a singer-songwriter, and I've been a professional musician for 30 years, I'd say. I think really I only since kind of 2017, 2016, I started really getting my own songs out there. I was doing it for a good number of years way back when, and I did a lot of gigs in the Opera House, actually, Eibhlín, before your time, and when I was kind of just out of college and stuff, and I've got several albums and stuff, but I'm bringing out my first album of all my own music in the new year, so I'm excited about that. And like, I'm finding that really the networking thing is just so important. I need to network, I guess, with a different kind of circle, people that are doing their own stuff. And I'm finding that kind of hard, all right. I don't mind talking to people at all, and I'm an entertainer, I suppose. I'm used to performing on my own with a guitar, with my band, whatever. But it's just, I suppose, I don't come from a classical background. I don't have any qualifications at all. My degree is in languages. My parents wouldn't allow me to do music. They were saying, oh, do I not know you'll be a music teacher? You do languages, now in those days in the 80s, it was all kind of get a decent, proper job. And anyway, I went off and became a musician anyway. But I suppose I find it a bit intimidating when I'm talking to so many people, particularly in Cork. Everybody seems to be so highly qualified, and I do find that a bit intimidating. But I guess I've got the years of experience. That's what I tell myself anyway. And yes, I'm hoping to learn some tips today. And I think the power of networking is so important, because I'm here now. I'm a musician from Cork. Eibhlín, I'd say you probably never heard of me, did you?
I actually did, Fiona.
Yeah, oh good, oh great. Because I've never met you, and
we've never met, but I've certainly heard of you, and I've heard some of your work. Yeah,
good,
it's to meet you.
Because I sort of feel I'm really trying to kind of get back into the whole sort of original music scene, and it is very hard. It is much harder than I thought it would be. But I think you just have to keep doing what you do, and as long as I love it and they enjoy it, I keep going.
Well, I think that, you know, it's great to have people here from the live music industry as well as the classical music industry. I think that we all share like lots of similarities in how the industry works. And there's certainly in Cork, I can't speak for other cities, but certainly in Cork, there's quite a bit of crossover between the two. You know, there's a community of musicians and everybody is it seems to be everybody's very supportive of each other. And I would assume it's like that in other cities too, you know. But it's just a case of, I mean, even if we look at today as an opportunity, like we've already made connections with each other, you know, so it's how we now use these connections and how we, I suppose, and I don't mean this in a kind of in any kind of nasty way or anything like that, but how we like leverage the opportunities of having met each other today. There's nothing wrong with owning that, you know. And that's how people get on. Like that's how we make work happen together, you know. We find common ground, that we're interested in each other. It's a mutually beneficial relationship, and I suppose it's how we proceed from here, you know. So we'll take a look at that. Thanks, Fiona, it's lovely to meet you. And
yeah, I would like to say as well, I think that it's very good to have classical music and say folk or contemporary music joining at times, and it's lovely to meet classical musicians.
Yeah.
So I think it's a very good fusion.
Brilliant. Thanks, Fiona. Claire, will we come back to you?
Well, all well, thank you. And I'd hate to begrudge my dog literally 30 seconds of barking. He's a faithful friend at the moment. I fell over a tree there. There was a tree across the road a couple of weeks ago. So this is how I'm here, because professionally I work day to day as a physiotherapist with a kind of a passionate love of music through the years, and drawn in many ways to our creative worlds. And in fact, my father, God rest him, had said, wouldn't I take a year and do music when I left school myself? And I thought, so it's interesting how we get advice, whether we take it or not, you know. So yeah, probably one of the reasons I'm here this morning, thank you to Music Network, is that I have time at the moment to avail of meeting with us all. I did music production as a part-time course in the last year because my son had taken up electric guitar, and I heard the sound. I went, oh my goodness. So usually plays classical viola with all my viola pals in Cork. And so love all kinds of music. I love hearing people's stories, love networking, as in meeting new friends. I do from a work perspective, and I find it's just integrating to my day-to-day job. I do some, say, communication coaching courses that I found so beneficial for learning as a learning model. And so just lucky to be steeped in music and friends, and so lovely to hear you all. Love steel guitar, Tom. Fiona, I've heard of you so many through the years, so thanks very much. And thanks for accommodating Buddy earlier.
No problem at all, Claire. It's lovely to meet you, and thanks for joining us. And lastly, Tamara, are you there? Do you want to join us? Okay, I think, yeah, that's no problem at all. So what I'd like to do now is I'm going to take you through some of the tips, or I suppose some of my own kind of sense of like how we might network. And I've prepared a little slide here that I want to share with you. So I'm just going to skip those bits. I'll come back to all of that. So Eileen's top tips for networking. So we're going to start with this, and I would like this to kind of frame how we move through the session. After this, we're going to work on our elevator pitch, or as I like to call it, our personal mission statement. And that's going to involve us doing a little bit of networking. But for now, let's just focus on, I'm just going to talk at you for a little while, okay? And at any point, if you would like to ask a question, please put your hand up, okay? So I think my top tip of all is that when you're in a room with people that you don't know, you can ask questions. If there's a lull in conversation, if you're struggling to find something to say, if there's a moment where you're like, oh God, what do I say now? or this person is very intimidating, or I'm really finding this very difficult, ask questions. Ask open-ended questions are the best. Get people talking. Ask questions like, where are you from? What age are your kids? Like questions that people, I learned this a long time ago. People really enjoy talking about themselves. And that is something that is 100% key to being able to manage yourself in a situation where you may feel a little bit uncomfortable. Like, give somebody else the floor. Does that make sense? It's really helpful. It's helped me out a lot over the years, and I do it all the time to this day. Next, where's my cursor? It's a two-way relationship, so active listening is key. So if somebody's talking, you've asked them a question, you really have to be present and listen to what the other person is saying. And sometimes if you're in a room full of people where there's a lot of noise, there's a lot of moving parts, there's a lot of people, you know, trying to talk to each other, trying to work their way to the most important person in the room, you still have to find the space to like be present in the conversation and listen to what the other person is saying. And that can be a really difficult thing to do. And it's something that takes a lot of practice, but it's really key in developing. It's really key, I think, in getting the most out of a conversation in a networking situation. Avoid looking over shoulders. I don't know if you've ever been in a room with like lots of people and somebody's talking to you and you can see that they're looking over your shoulder to see who's behind you because they want to talk to the person behind you. They're not really interested in talking to you. I have had that experience in my life a number of times. And it's something I'm very conscious of. Like I am aware that if I have an event in the Opera House and I'm in a position of privilege where people want to talk to me, like it's very important that like I practice active listening, that the person feels that they're in my home almost in the Opera House. I feel like that. So it's really important that they have the space. I've invited them in, that they have the space to talk to me and that I'm not looking over their shoulders, like looking for who the most important person in the room is so that I can get to them. It's very, very easy to do it. You don't even know, you're not even aware you're doing it. And maybe it's not even looking over your shoulder to get to talk to the next person or to see who else is in the room. You might be distracted by something. So it's try where you can, and it's not always possible, but try where you can to maintain eye contact with the person that you're speaking to. And I know that's very granular, but I do really believe that in order to create a meaningful relationship with somebody where there's trust, really, these are very important parts of building the trust between two people in a networking situation. If you're in the room and you're feeling awkward and have no one to talk to at an event, look to the periphery of the room and you'll see all the other uncomfortable people there. Go and talk to them and watch the relief flood across their face. This is something I learned when I lived in the States, and I was taught this by like proper professional development, like fundraising people. There's always people on the edges. There's always people on the outside who feel like they shouldn't be there and they're feeling awkward about being there and they don't know how to start a conversation. If you're feeling awkward, they're your friends. So go and find them and talk to them. And you'll often find that, you know, the mutual relief of having somebody to chat to or somebody kind of listen actively or ask questions can actually really create a lovely opportunity for people to get to know people. Not everybody is capable of walking into a room and owning it and working the room. It's very, very, very rarely that somebody is extremely comfortable with that in a professional situation. And I see this time and time again when I host events after big concerts in the Opera House or big shows. We do opening shows and closing shows, and there's always parties, and I'm always the host, which is challenging, I have to say. I don't particularly enjoy it, but it's a very important part of the work. And I see it all the time that there are people who are deeply, deeply uncomfortable with being in the space, but they know that it's the only way they're going to get to meet other people in the industry is these parties where there's, you know, where there's an opportunity for, you know, people to informally to kind of talk to each other. And in our industry, a lot of networking is done informally. You know, we're not a corporate industry where, you know, there's networking breakfasts and, you know, there's all of that if you want it, but actually I don't know if you're going to meet musicians at it. you know, or you're not going to meet other kind of like-minded professionals at it. So unfortunately, we find ourselves in bars a lot, at post-show events a lot, at pre-show events a lot, at interval drinks a lot. And it's using those opportunities to get what you need from them is really important. So find your friends at the corner, on the periphery of the room. And I've used that many times myself. So be in the moment, I think it's really important. Like, try to put out of your head what the person might have to offer you. So like, let go of the expectation, the weight of expectation. You can feel it. Like, it's very palpable if somebody's talking to you and they really have quite a lot that they want from you. It's like, you know, a networking event where you meet somebody for the first time is not the place to really focus on that. It's about just letting go and getting to know the person on a human level. Come back to this whole asking questions and, you know, how many kids you have. I love talking about my children. I could talk about them all day long, you know, and like, loads of people feel the same. Like, it's like, and when I'm getting to know somebody, I really want to know about them. Almost what they do is kind of secondary, actually, you know. So I think let go of the weight of expectation when you're in this situation and just kind of let it happen. Be yourself and just enjoy the conversations. If you're in a position of privilege, use it to help people. This is really important. So like, I will always, as much as I can, when I'm networking in the Opera House, I introduce people to each other quite a lot. If somebody comes over to me while I'm talking to somebody else, I'll introduce them and I'll give the mini elevator speech about them. This and such, they are a member of this orchestra, they sing with this choir, you know, this is such and such, they are a member of this orchestra. So I introduce and broker conversations and broker relationships anywhere I can. And I think all of us find ourselves, I mean, I have also been, I mean, this summer I was in a very like, I was in the States and I had to go back to the Kennedy Center where I did my fellowship 11 years ago, and I was in a room full of like very, very, very top world class like arts managers, like really intimidating room now, like, you know. And I found myself really being like extremely grateful for anybody who took the time to introduce me to somebody else, because then it sparks up another conversation and you can find, like, honestly, if that hadn't happened, I would have been one of the ones on the edge of the room, like wondering, how am I going to do this, you know? But at the same time, like, you know, as uncomfortable and all as I was, like, just even having somebody reach out and just say, oh, have you met such and such? It's a really important thing. So I think us acknowledging when we are in that position is really important and will help settle the room and help settle the situation. Try and find network events that you are comfortable with at the beginning. So like, I would say you can work your way up to the really, you can kind of, it's like about practice, like, and you guys all know about how important practicing is, you know. So like, start small, start with the ones that you're comfortable with, network in your own group. So like, I would say if you work in an office, like, network in your own business, in your own building. If you work in an orchestra, if you're a member of an orchestra, network within your orchestra. So start building and practicing your networking skills with the people that you know. And that in time will help you go into rooms that are full of people that you don't know. So this is something I kind of wondered, should I have said it or not, but I think it's just important to acknowledge it. This idea of being on all the time. Like, when you go into a room where you don't know people, you have to become this kind of heightened version of yourself, you know, because you're super aware of the things that are coming out of your mouth. You're super aware of, like, you know, how you're being perceived. Like, well, I know I am, and it mightn't be like that for everybody, but I suppose I can only bring you what I know of myself. So it's this kind of need to be on and recognizing that you're on, and knowing that when it's over, you can be off again. Like, that helps me get through. So like, if I have a really big event in the Opera House, I know that there's like an hour where I need to be on. I need to work the room. I need to talk to everybody. There could be 50 people that I need to get to from one end of the bar to the next. And I know that at the end of that, it's going to be over and I'm going to be exhausted, but I can settle knowing that that there's a kind of a finite time period where I just need to kind of bring it. Does that make sense? And that's like something that I have learned from, that's 15 years of like being in rooms where I didn't know anybody, you know, and like wondering how I'm actually going to do it. Like, how am I going to get through this? I just tell myself, it's okay. I just need to bring it and then it'll be over. You know, now you can see why I kind of struggle with networking. It's like, I've had to build a lot of skills around how to do it in order to be able to do it properly. This is something I find really helpful if I'm in a room where I don't know anybody, is to use the buddy system. So arrange to go to an event with somebody you know, and then lean on each other. Okay. So like if you're finishing a conversation and you're like, okay, who am I going to talk to now? You can go back to your friend, like reground and go again. So like find somebody who will come with you, who has an equally vested interest in being in the room with you, and use that person as each other's support. Reach out afterwards. Now this is really important actually, and this is something that, you know, I think is not said enough. Reach out afterwards, send an email or follow on social media like Twitter or LinkedIn. So I would say like there's an appropriate way to reach out afterwards and there's an inappropriate way to reach out afterwards. Like I wouldn't send like unsolicited text messages or phone calls, or I wouldn't like show up like at the door of somebody, but I would reach out with an email and say, it was really nice to meet you. Listen, if you're ever around for 5 minutes, I'd love a coffee. I know you're busy, but you know, if you really do want to create the next level of the relationship, then if you've had a nice chat with somebody, absolutely reach out. I get it all the time, and I do really like, and I do it all the time. It's really important to follow up. LinkedIn is a really good place, but I think LinkedIn is really effective when you've already met somebody and you can kind of create then this professional relationship online with them. It's very difficult when you haven't met somebody in person or like over Zoom. I mean, this is a good way of meeting people also. And Twitter is also, I mean, there's various degrees of how people want to engage with social media. Like for myself professionally, I use Twitter. I don't use Facebook. I don't use Instagram for my professional life. I use Twitter and I use LinkedIn because for me, they're the safest way I can share my professional output. Lots of people will use LinkedIn and Facebook for that stuff, and that's absolutely fine. It's entirely up to yourself how you use social media. But I would say there's this really big focus on it at the moment, but nothing actually beats like meeting somebody in person. You know, I think social media is really effective afterwards, actually. But until you meet somebody in person, you're not going to get that kind of trust build up. That's never going to come from social media, I don't think. But then lots of people have lots of opinions on this, so I'm very happy to be wrong about that too. That's just my own personal experience. Practice, practice, practice. Again, it's come back to this idea that it's a skill. It's something you have to learn. Some people do. Some people are brilliant at it and they don't have to learn anything. And they just can go and do it. And it's amazing to watch. It's like you behold this like incredibly social, you know, type A personality who's well able to work the room. And those people are few and far between. But the rest of us, we need to practice it. It needs to be something that we actively engage in and think about and really, I suppose, spend time like nurturing within ourselves. Be really gentle with ourselves in it. Try to kind of set a couple of objectives, like, and I mean like really, you know, easy, gentle objectives when you're going into a room, something that is actually quite easily achievable. And again, like find ways to practice this, even if it's like, you know, I don't know, if you need to talk to yourself in the mirror, talk to yourself in the mirror. Just find ways to like be more comfortable with presenting yourself. And we'll talk a little bit more about that. Really important to relax and just try and be yourself and try and have a bit of fun. Like we're like in Ireland, we're lucky. People like having a laugh and they like having a bit of fun. And that kind of comes first, you know, that kind of comes before everything else. You know, that's kind of socially and culturally, we all depend on the crack to kind of get us through situations. And actually, like, and when I've done this kind of work internationally, that's something that's like not there. Like people can't kind of draw on that, you know, as easily. So use that, try and have fun, try and relax, and just, again, it's really important to just be kind of an authentic version of yourself, albeit heightened version of yourself. But, you know, you want to put yourself out there, not the version of yourself you think what people want to see. So they are my top tips. I'll send those, I'm happy to share those with you guys after this. Does anybody have any questions on any of that? Okay. So we're going to move on. Yes, Tom.
I'm just going to say, yeah, just personal experience with that. You know, it can be very varied. Like sometimes, you know, you can be on top form and it's so easy. Another time it's, you know, your mood varies as well.
Okay.
So it's how to deal with that, you know.
Yeah, I mean, it's really, really tough. And like, if you're not feeling it and you find yourself having to network, like it can be one of the hardest things you'll ever have to do, you know. But I think, like, I can only speak from my own experience, like, you know, finding a way to kind of like make the deal with yourself that like you'll do it and then it'll be done. Or else just to not do it, and that's okay too, you know. Like, do you want to give us an example or anything, Tom?
Or just being in a situation, you know, and you can just be absolutely so confident and everything's so easy and it's, you know,
Yeah.
that would be, and then other times just like, oh my God, I don't want to be here at all, like, you know.
That's when the questions come in really handy. So just keep asking people questions, you know, like take the spotlight off yourself and put it onto somebody else. And just, you can disappear behind the questions, you know.
That's quite easy.
Yeah, and it does work. I mean, it's just a really easy way of like just being able to cope in that situation. Because sometimes it's like super easy. You can walk into a room and you're like, I'm on fire. And then other times it's, you really have to find it. And it's the times you really have to find it that'll really make or break you as somebody who can network, you know. One of the things that I think is really important is having a personal mission statement, or you call it an elevator pitch, or you can call it whatever you want. I work in a nonprofit industry where every organization I've ever worked with has to have a mission statement. I'm going to share some of those with you now because it'll give you a sense of what I'm talking about. The mission statement says really clearly, sets the boundaries and the parameters of what the organization does really clearly, really concisely. And it's something that I rattle off time and time again when it comes to the Opera House, like, oh, well, our mission statement is this, this, and this. And it gives people enough information to make decisions and to decide whether or not the organization is for them or not. And I've worked a lot with my master's students on this idea of how we present ourselves and this idea of having a personal mission statement and how useful that would be in situations where we find ourselves having to sell ourselves and present ourselves. So we're going to do a little bit of work on that now, if you're happy to do that. I'll share my screen again here. So like, can you all see that? I'll just extend it here now. So what's your story? Why are you here? Why do you do this work? What are your objectives? How do you plan to meet them? Do you have a personal mission statement? These are the kind of questions that if you have these answered before you go into a room full of people you don't know, it's going to make your experience much easier because you'll have a script to draw from where you can put yourself out there in a really safe way, in a way that you have actually set the boundaries, you know what you want to say, and you're protected in that. Okay, so I'm going to go through some mission statements. So I'll give you a sense, kind of a bit of context as to what I mean. This is the Cork Opera House mission statement. Cork Opera House is the region's premier arts and entertainment organisation, presenting and producing a diverse programme of performances for each and every member of our community. So what that is a kind of a concise way of explaining what Cork Opera House is, but also it encapsulates absolutely everything that's important about the Opera House. Okay, going on to the next one. The Galway Arts Festival. Our mission is to be a 21st century pilgrimage that delivers a world-class festival experience for the most amount of people possible and is an artistic leader in the presentation and origination of work. Like an amazing mission statement that evokes imagery and really kind of sells what the festival is. The Arc. Our mission is to spark childhood imagination by making and sharing great art for, by, and about children, bringing joy and creating a cultural engagement that lasts a lifetime. Another lovely mission statement. So, come to mine. To prepare for today, I created my own mission statement for you guys. It's 3 sentences long. My name is Eibhlín Gleeson. I'm a creative producer, an arts manager, and a musician. I am currently the CEO and artistic director of Cork Opera House, a position I've held since October 2015. I really enjoy the creative nature of my work, and I look forward to finding many more ways to explore this as my career continues. So I think that kind of says everything about who I am. So if I was being introduced to somebody, a party or an event or a networking event, I'm a creative producer, I'm a musician. I currently work in the Opera House. I've been there since 2015. Like, the creative nature of my work is what I really thrive on, and I'm really excited about finding more ways to do that in the future. It kind of sums me up in a way that, like, it gives you everything you need to know about me. It's controlled by me because I've written this and I'm putting out there what I want to say. And if I learn this off, I'll always have something to say about myself. Does that make sense? So what I'd like us to do now is I'd like us to take 7 to 10 minutes to create a 3-sentence mission statement for ourselves. And then we're going to, if you're comfortable with it, I'm going to ask you to share it with us afterwards. Is that okay with you, Sarah?
Yep, that sounds great, Eibhlín. Yeah, so everyone take their time, and we look forward to
I think maybe turn off your cameras and turn off your sound and come back to us it's at 1:15 now. Come back to us at just before 25 past, and we can look at it. Okay? Thanks, everyone. We might get started there again, so folks. Okay. Now that you all know exactly what you want to say, who would like to start? Anybody want to volunteer? Fiona O'Sullivan.
Out of the way. A good old trick. Yeah. So my name is Fiona O'Sullivan. I'm a violin teacher, freelance musician, and communications professional. I work between Dublin and Clare, and I'm open to working with other creative professionals on concerts and other projects. I have a wide range of experience in areas such as health and education, and I am passionate about creating and teaching. I'm looking to grow as a musician and become more established through networking and other experience. Sure. That's kind of it.
That's gorgeous. That's brilliant, Fiona. Like, I know so much more about you now. And now I want to ask you about, you mentioned there about health.
Yeah.
Can you tell me a little bit more about that?
Yeah, funnily enough, actually that's kind of the area, a bit like, is it Claire? Actually, I come from a background of, say, healthcare professionals, and I worked in a medical company for a number of years. So in marketing was the position that I had. So it was kind of communications. So I worked along with a lot of nurses and medical professionals in and out of, we had events in hospital settings, which I would have helped organize. And I really enjoyed working with them because they were, like caring. I think that's part of my personality. I find it hard to work in an area if I don't feel like, I guess a lot of the people I worked with were, had that caring quality about them. They were kind of healthcare professionals. So, and then even after college, I worked for an airline, and when I realized it was communications over the phone, and it was, a lot of it was service and providing kind of help. So I think a lot of them, actually, some of them went on to work in different areas, and some were actually had worked in, there was an actor and music, it's just funny when you think back, people have different parts of their personalities, you know, depending where you work, I think as well.
Yeah,
One, you know,
that's really true. And also the fact that you've left, you know, a professional, you've left one profession and moved into another, like, you know, that's really interesting life change to have made, you know, and like how comfortable are you with talking about that?
Well, funnily, having done a number of interviews, it actually kind of helped. On what you're saying today, I had to work on elevator pitches and I got more comfortable talking about it. But at the time, yeah, it was a bit of a scary change because I guess we were very like it was very close knit kind of company and the people were nice. And I guess when you're comfortable, like a friend of mine said, in the comfort zone and you know what you're doing and who you're working with, it's kind of hard. But at the time I went to do a master's and I had started part-time and it was a very good one. It was very challenging and we had to do a lot of this kind of thing, presenting, and I met a lot of international students, and I'd always kind of worked, I think my initial degree was international business, so I really enjoyed, you know, it really expanded. I felt like it was just a good chance to grow really, and but then it was a bit scary because I went into having a secure, let's say, you know, good job to having to work, kind of do contracts and be a bit more, you know, having to learn to adapt, I think, to working
the life of a freelancer.
That's it. Yeah. So I kind of think in some ways, I think it's that people start the other way and then they end up. So, but then I thought actually I read somewhere about freelance. It's not something I ever thought I would do, even though my brother edits TV programs and he's done that for years and he works for himself. But I read somewhere someone said everyone's actually a freelancer no matter what they do. It's you have to kind of move, you know, to keep your own, you know, you grow as a person, I think they say, through developing your own skills. And if you stay in one place for too long, apparently you don't always, but I guess it depends obviously on the person and where you are. So,
you know, it's 100% like there's no such thing as a job for life anymore, you know, particularly in our industry, you know. So it's like, but like I've just learned so much about you, Fiona, just from those few sentences, you know, that you've put out there, you know. And I also gave me lots of, you know, it led me to ask you lots of questions, you know. So I could keep asking you questions all day now based on the 3 sentences you put out there, you know. So like having that in your arsenal when you go into a room is just like, you know, really useful. And like it doesn't have to be rehearsed, or it doesn't have to be like something that is, you know, oh, this is what I have to say about myself. You don't have to be that, you know, organized about anything, you know. It's just being ready to answer, being ready to talk about who you are.
Yeah, I think what I struggled with, again, I think for years after having done the masters, and I think it's like you grow into something. Even the marketing took me time when I realized to get comfortable saying that's what I do. And then I thought, oh no, now I've changed into, you know, something else. So it's, again, I thought just giving myself time to kind of, like you said, it's okay to not be 100% maybe comfortable and, you know, and confident. Maybe it's like everyone's on a kind of a developing, you know, we're all works in progress, I think.
Listen, we're all on some sort of like confidence spectrum anyway, all of the time. Like Tom said, some days you're feeling it, some days you're not. That's, you know.
Yeah.
But it's about, you know, it's about just being your authentic self in the room, you know. And like as musicians, like we're not trained to be like personalities, you know. We're trained, like you're trained to be musicians and artists. And with that, often, so often, and I'm not like, people don't have the kind of skills, like social skills, because that's not what they do, you know.
Yeah, sell yourself. So, yeah,
you know?
and it's funny because someone who hired me for that job, she's a recruiter, but actually they say there's more going on than what you see, you know. And she said to me, because she gave out to me, actually my interview wasn't that good, and then she's like, you have to present yourself better, and she said it's like you're an actor. And I actually didn't, you know, I thought I'm going into a marketing job, but it was like you went in and you had to put on. So I guess even when I think, oh, it's not that different, everything you have to, like you said, be a bit on, or have to be
just a little bit on, a little bit of a high version of yourself, you know. Sharon, you have your hand up there.
Yeah, just I was wondering, in the context of all this, do you know there's different, like there's different rooms with different people and they have like different focuses, and like from the sounds of it, like everyone in this room has various different strings to their bow. And do you kind of tailor what the first layer of information is that you would give to someone that you're meeting for the first time, rather than kind of like risking them losing interest because you're kind of going, oh, I've done this and this and this and this and this and this, and all of which are really interesting, but maybe like very different kind of threads? Is that, or do you just kind of?
Yeah, I do. Absolutely, I do. And like, I think when you become more accustomed to networking, you do that quite easily, you know. But like, for example, Sharon, like lots of people, when you're in the room, lots of people know who you are, right? Because you're an opera singer and you have a name and you're, you know, established. So like you will have the privilege of being able to, you don't necessarily, you're on the step up, you know, from people who necessarily wouldn't have a profile like that, you know. But like that means then that you can be more specific in the information that you give people. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I was just wondering because like during the pandemic, I've been teaching a lot, you know, kind of as a needs must, and I've been really enjoying it. But I don't like say that because I don't want that to kind of dilute my performing, because that's, you know, I'm an opera singer and that's what I want to do. And but yeah,
Absolutely.
I was just wondering whether
So
what do you
legitimate.
filter stuff? Yeah.
Absolutely. I mean, we have a guy now in our panto this year. I'll give you an example. And he's a really famous podcaster. Like, I mean, like they have himself and his friend have this podcast. I don't know if you know it. I'll share it with you. I'm sure he wouldn't mind. It's Grandmam. It's a podcast. Two young Cork guys who live in London, and they're fabulous. And anyway, he's an actor in his own right, and he's in the panto, but he's not at all advertising the fact that he's in the panto.
Yeah.
Like it's not something, he's not putting it on his social media because like he's known as a podcaster. So again, it's like brand Kevin, you know, like what belongs where, and kind of filtering the information like to suit the audience is really important. And Sharon, I 100% know why you wouldn't be putting it out there that you're a teacher, because you have a responsibility to your reputation as an opera singer. Not that there's anything at all wrong with being a teacher, but you don't want people's opinions of you to be diluted or to be confused in any way.
Exactly.
And that's totally legitimate and the right way to look at it. You know, do you want to share your mission with us?
Yeah, sure. There is a kind of an educational twist to it at the end, but my name is Sharon Carty. I'm an opera and concert singer and artistic partner with the Irish National Opera. I'm an experienced interpreter of Baroque and contemporary repertoire, and I'm looking forward to exploring more romantic repertoire in the coming years. And I am passionate about access to the arts, singing in particular, for children at all stages of their development.
That's gorgeous. That's gorgeous. Does anybody have any questions for Sharon out of that? Fiona?
Yeah, I totally understand, Sharon, about the teaching thing. This has been a huge problem for me for years, in that I would never have survived through the years when my kids were young without singing at masses for weddings. And I got a name kind of for playing at wedding ceremonies, but I'm finding it's really come against me for trying to be an original artist. And people say, oh, yeah, so I'm sure you're a wedding singer, like.
Yeah.
And I know, I mean, I'm sure now in the world of opera, it's even more difficult. But God, I totally understand why you wouldn't want to say you're a teacher. If someone says to me, I'm sure you're a wedding singer, it just feels like a real put down. And I said, well, actually, I'm an original artist, but you don't want to release any albums and stuff. But it's a dilemma, and it's very difficult to try and to know how to handle it. So
people like to put other people in boxes so much, don't they?
Oh, John, totally. And there's also musical snobbery there, like in a huge way.
Yeah.
In a huge way. I mean, it's great to hear you saying, Eibhlín, there's no problem at all with you not advertising. Whereas
Not at all. No problem whatsoever.
I don't play at weddings, but I could never have managed so many times when I was pregnant with my kids.
And also, being a wedding singer is a very legitimate way to make a living, you know, but it's not how you want to be identified as in the wider community, you know, and there's absolutely nothing wrong with that. Like, and I think like the mission statement, your personal mission statement, it's you guys deciding where those boundaries lie. You know, it's you guys deciding what you're going to put out there and what you don't want to put out there, and you are in control of that narrative, you know. So like, Sharon,
Eibhlín, there's a really interesting thing. I don't know if you guys would know who Renee Fleming is. She's a
Yeah.
really famous American soprano. Her autobiography is really interesting because she talks. I think she has two autobiographies, and I've forgotten which one. I've read one of them, but she talks about when she was a student and sang in jazz clubs, to make ends meet, to make a few bob, and like how she kind of framed it that it actually positively influenced her operatic career, because all of the extemporizing and improvising and kind of going up to high notes and not thinking about the technicality of it and just kind of jamming with the guys or whatever in the band, that kind of gave her an ease of technicality. So I think use your skills that you learned from the wedding singing, and
100%. Yeah.
Oh, totally. I do, but it has been said to me, and I do find with people in venues that if they, they're slower to book you if they think that you're a wedding singer, because maybe, I don't know, maybe it's just in that folk scene or that kind of.
It's just that it's such a small, I guess we all as artists have to be really responsible for what we put out there, so like it's about marketing and branding, really. Like you can, and like part of networking is kind of moving into that conversation about how you market yourself and how you brand yourself, and like there's a whole other workshop to be done on that, but like, and I speak from a venue perspective, we, like you've seen our mission statement, that's who we need to work with, like people who are listed in our mission statement. So I go out looking for artists who meet that, and if I'm not clear about what artists do, then it's very difficult for me to engage with that artist, so it's really important. This whole moment of deciding what you're going to put out there, I think it's really key, and will pay dividends in the long run. If you knew, Fiona, like for many years when you were singing at weddings, if you knew that would ultimately come against you, you probably would have handled that a little bit differently at the time, or maybe played it down, or not done it in Cork City. Like I know singers who don't do pub gigs in Cork City, but they'll do them in other cities, but they don't do them in Cork City because they want people to pay to see them in Cork, and they have an audience that will pay to see them.
I would be in that position as well. You'd be trying to,
and that's brilliant.
Yeah,
knowing, I suppose, knowing that that's what you need to do, while we're on, Fiona, do you want to share your mission statement with us?
I will, yeah. I'm kind of fluffing around on my last line. You can tell me what you think. Mine is kind of, I don't know, I hope it's not like a CV. Anyway, I'll throw it out there. I'm Fiona Kennedy. I'm a singer-songwriter, performer and recording artist. I've performed on TV and radio and played in many different parts of the world. My life to date has been all about music, and with the upcoming release of my next album, I'm hoping to continue with my passion for creating original songs that touch those who hear them. I really enjoy working with other musicians, and I'd love to do more of this as my journey continues. Promoting the album with a nationwide tour is what's next on the cards for me.
Like, that's great. Like, I have a really clear idea now of who you are, and if you were to use that as the basis to kind of build your brand, like, it would be really clear who you are and what you do, and I think, like, even knowing that you have an album coming out, there's loads of things I can ask about. Like, you're talking about who you want to start working with other musicians. Like, who do you want to work with? Who would you like to work with next?
Oh, yeah. Okay. Who would I'd say Jack. I'd say Jack O'Rourke. I'd love to do something with Jack.
Yeah, and Jack is fab, and you do a great job together. Yeah. But even like now, I'm able to ask you those questions, and like, and it's kind of opened up this. Does anybody else have questions for Fiona based on her personal mission?
Yeah, rub it out and start again, Fiona.
No, Claire's giving you the thumbs up there, so I think you've passed. You've passed. So is Tom. Chloe, I'll move to you. So.
Yeah, so it's a bit of a tricky one because I'm not actually working in the space I want to be working in at the moment. But what I said is, my name is Chloe Kiley. I'm an educator and musician looking to move into the field of artistic management with a European focus. I want to combine my creative and organizational skills to support musicians in building their professional platforms with an understanding of their unique needs. bit like a LinkedIn profile there, like. But
Oh no, it's very good. It's very good. And what I like about it is that, like, I can tell that you're moving away from more away from the performance and into the kind of arts management like world, you know. Is that, would I be right in thinking that?
absolutely. But it's not something I have professional experience in yet.
That's okay though. Like, and you probably do. It's just not formal experience.
Exactly,
As
that's the thing.
musicians, we're managing ourselves all the time, you
That's
know.
the thing, and like, you know, trying to put like choral gigs together and things like that.
There you go.
Um,
Yeah.
but yeah, a while back now.
But honestly, honestly, Chloe, some of the best arts managers I've ever worked with are people who've self-managed. You
Yeah,
know, because there's no end to the kind of things you have to do when you self-manage, you know.
exactly.
So I wouldn't say that you have no experience. I would say you've probably have plenty of experience, maybe no formal experience with an organization yet, but you know, that's not to say you don't have the skills or you don't have the experience, you know.
Exactly. Like, I've done admin on one side, I've like been a musician on the other side. I've, you know, I'm trying to combine all those things together.
Yeah. So like, there's like, I can see you using that, you know, if you were to like go to, you know, like a theatre forum event or somewhere where like it's a meeting of arts managers, you
Yeah.
know, so you would walk into that room and you would be clear about what you want to say, which is that you're a musician and you're interested in moving into the performing arts, you know. Or you're interested in moving into managing the performing arts, and that's like a really good way to open the conversation, because I can say to you, oh, you're a musician, and what have you, you know, what's your background in music, and you know, what areas would you like to work in? Do you have an answer to that?
Absolutely. Like, because I've done my training in singing, I'm really interested in the worlds of choral music in particular, and opera. So I'm looking kind of at, you know, young young artistic management programs with the European Choral Association, JMI, and groups like that.
Brilliant. Like, great, you have a really clear idea of what you want to do, and you know, I think that's really strong. You could literally like drop anybody an email with that. You know, you could write to me tomorrow and be like, this is who I am, this is what I want to do. Is there any way you have 5 minutes for a chat or a coffee, you know, and being able to like have the confidence to reach out, because you know exactly what you want to say. You know?
That's the thing I was kind of wondering about, and maybe it's not a question relevant to this webinar, but is it too cheeky? Like, I know some people who are working in the field and I have reached out to them on a kind of personal level, but can you reach out to an agency without, you know, if they're not advertising on their careers space, or if they don't have that, would you?
You 100% can, but I would say you just have to prepare yourself that you probably
For a
won't.
lot of those.
You know? Or like, you know, but I would say it's more useful for you to be in the room where there's other arts managers and you are introducing yourself that way, you know, and then you can follow up and be like today, now, if you're in Cork anytime over Christmas or the next couple of weeks, come and see me, we can have a chat, no problem, because we've met here, like you've told me what you want to do, you know, and that's how you do it. Like, it's getting the door open a little bit so that you can then find ways to kind of like,
Exactly, yeah.
You know, it's very hard to do anything cold calling wise. It's
Absolutely.
It's really, really soul destroying stuff. You can do it. No, there's nothing to stop you doing it.
Yeah.
But it's a heavy lifting, you know.
Absolutely. And it feels cheeky as well in a way. And I know you have to be cheeky sometimes with it, but
It's okay to be cheeky, because I don't think it's like, I don't ever think it's cheeky. I think it's just smart, you know. Like, if somebody contacts me directly, you know, I don't mind. Like, I think, yeah, look, we're all just trying to do the same thing here. We're all just trying to make it work, you know. So, and there's ways of doing it. And again, it comes back to this appropriate follow-up, this idea that it's okay to contact somebody on Twitter or on LinkedIn. It's okay to send somebody an email, but it's probably not okay to, like, you know, show up at the door and be like, hi Eibhlín, do you have 5 minutes for a coffee, you know, or whatever it is that you might do that's kind of inappropriate, you know. But I think an email is a really appropriate way, or reaching out to somebody on LinkedIn is really, and like, nobody's going to be offended or upset by that, you know. So well done, Chloe.
Thank you very much.
We'll move to you next, Tom.
Okay. Microphone had held, wouldn't it? Okay. It's lovely to hear other people's statements. It's making me go, oh yeah, I could do that. That sounds great. So really nice to hear what you've done. Hope this is okay. My name is Tom Portman. I'm a composer, songwriter, and international performer with over 25 years experience in the industry. My work focuses on our relationships to each other and the natural world. I'm a multi-instrumentalist on acoustic and electric guitar, dobro and lap steel, violin and other strings. My broad skill set, along with an eclectic set of musical influences, places me in a unique position as a performer, composer, session musician and recording artist. I'm looking forward to further international touring, solo performances and future collaborations.
I mean, that is great. That's so clear. Come back to what you said about relationships and natural world. Can I ask you a little bit more about that?
Yeah, so so it's during my MA I was looking at, what a lot of the songs were about and talking to my, because I would kind of often see myself as an instrumentalist and a songwriter, but not analyze it. And then I was talking to my wife and going through it, and it became clear that a lot of the work is about our relationships to each other and what's going on, not just with her, but generally between us or other. And quite a lot of the songs I worked on the MA are not from a personal perspective, they're observing other people's stories.
Mhm.
And then also, I really love nature and I love being out in the natural world, so that's bringing that into my work as well, in our relationship.
So interesting, because mostly the most interesting things about you guys are you as artists and what motivates and inspires you artistically, you know. And that's something that when you have the space to talk about it, it's really inspirational and it's really interesting, and people want to listen and they want to hear what you have to say. So
I think that's the thing for me, why I added that in, because before I was presenting myself, I'm a multi-instrumentalist or an instrumental, but it's like actually an album I'm bringing this week is all instrumental tracks. And I actually sat on that album for years because I couldn't think of the titles. What do it's easy when it's a song, but when
yeah.
it's instrumental, how do so it's actually those stories that's what they're about, connecting.
Yeah, connecting and finding ways to have a platform for that work, and a platform to speak about that work, and I think that we don't often get the opportunity to speak about ourselves as artists, really. We're just so busy trying to like make ends meet that like sitting down and talking about why it's important what we do. So I think that we can just take the space and time to do that. And actually, I really like that you brought that into your mission statement, because it is about you being an artist, So Claire, I'll move to you, and I think we've done everybody then. Claire.
Hi, great. Thank you. So I'm Claire Desmond. I'm multi-instrumentalist who love playing with sound, with movement, with textiles, with beautiful sceneries, and love camper vanning. And I love listening to what lights people up. I want to create music, gigging with people to make moments together in small venues. And I'm passionate about encouraging people who may have stopped either playing or whatever they do, or not started, whatever they want to do, by maybe teaching them how they represent their experiences physiologically, and maybe so that they can become aware of their skills that they have to learn. Created a website I've always wanted to, based on just this feeling of how many people I meet who say they either have always wanted to and never did, or stopped doing. So, yep. So always up for things.
And Claire, can I ask you, out of that, why are you motivated by like people kind of being lapsed musicians? Like, why does that motivate you?
Because I have such a feeling every time I play music or just immersed in our creative world. I love hanging around with people who are creating things, the energy that is within each person anyway. And it's just, I love seeing the people's potential. It's sometimes more obvious to others than themselves. And when they're talking, they light up and I go, yeah, well, just keep this going. In how to do that is sometimes what many of us can't see ourselves. And it's a learned skill or a learned stop oftentimes. So many people have the stories of they were told to go to the back of the choir, mouth instead of and mime. And you know, they're there listening, and they're there, and listening is as much a skill as playing music or anything creative. So I've recently started a textile course because a friend of mine who plays music helped me make a cushion and just use me as a guinea pig, and it has opened a whole new world for me. So it's just whatever lights people up. Yeah.
It's lovely. It's really lovely, and it comes back to like the core of why we do what we do, you know, and you've really summed it up nicely there, you know. So I feel like I know so much more about all of you. Hi Aoife, do you want to come in there?
Hi Evan, how are you?
Good.
Sorry, I just logged in late because
no problem whatsoever.
Stuff like that. So I have made my statement. It was very difficult to do, but it kind of made me focus. So that's great exercise. My name is Aoife Moriarty. I was formerly an educator. I'm a multimedia artist, songwriter, and musician. I'm currently completing an MA in fashion design. My project is based on the experience of learning the saxophone as an adult, honouring playful exploration of visual identity and composition of short instrumental pieces for beginner saxophone. I call it a method acting approach to help me evolve and explore new musical identities different to traditional piano and guitar and computer approaches that I've taken in the past. Having a strong visual component is important to me musically. And yeah, just up until the end of lockdown, I was in full-time secondary school educator, but my passion was always composition and songwriting, and I took a career break 10 years ago to do a master's in music technology. And I suppose I'm kind of one of these lapsed people who went into working, and now I've just the opportunity to go at it a little bit more. So that's where I'm at.
That's really great, and like, thank you for joining us. It's lovely to know that that you felt you could share that with us, and Aoife. And I think I have so many questions, like from those few sentences that you put forward there. You know,
Yeah.
I could ask you questions all day about it. Like even the fact that it's like, you know, you're very multidisciplinary in your approach. Like it seems to be music, but then all the things that also influence that for you, you know.
Yeah.
And then this idea of being an adult and like learning the saxophone as an adult, and like what all the things that mean, you know. So
as a singer, I just felt that I just wanted to express myself like through my body. I'm also a yoga teacher as well. So just this idea of the physicality of the instrument, and it's so completely different to like, you know, making one note is so nuanced because there's so much color in each note on its own. Whereas, you know, when you're playing the piano, like we know it's not, we don't just press the key like most people think it is, but it is more, the challenges are different. And I just think it's also interesting how sometimes how we play one instrument is how we play all instruments, and so it kind of shines a few lights on our blind spots, or you know, and it just helps to kind of fill in a few gaps as well musically.
Absolutely. That's so interesting, and we could keep talking all day about it.
Yeah.
But I hope what this exercise has done, it has given you an opportunity to kind of think about what it is you want to put out there about yourself.
Yeah.
And really kind of push you can set the narrative here about what you want people to know about you. You can be in control of that at networking events. You can have thought about, before you go into the room, you can have thought about what you want to say. You can have the confidence of your convictions to say it if you have it kind of rehearsed in your head a little bit, you know. And I think more than anything else, like it's about just having the freedom to just be yourself, really, actually, and having the confidence to just put yourself out there. And that's easier said than done, but kind of that's all what it boils down to, you know. So just to kind of wrap everything up, we've talked about and you all have the permission to contact me after this 100%. It would be lovely to hear from you all. And if I can do anything to kind of follow up with you on that, please let me know. I suppose today I really thought long and hard about how I could help you guys, and really I came back to the same thing for me again and again, is that like I can really only speak from my own perspective and my own experience. So I hope that some of that was useful for you, and that some of that was something that you'll kind of use going forward. And if not, then that's fine too. So if there's no, do we have any questions, or does anybody want to ask me anything before we finish up?
Well, I want to thank you, Eibhlín, on behalf of Music Network and everybody here, for sharing with us the benefit of your vast experience and, you know, breaking the process down into, I suppose, a toolkit that people can use to work on their networking skills. And, you know, thanks for giving people the opportunity to practice those skills here as well. That's great. I can certainly put everybody in touch after this event, and in touch with Eibhlín as well. Perhaps maybe let me know if you would rather not have your email address shared with the group. My email address is programsadmin@musicnetwork.ie. If you'd like to get in touch with me, or if you want to let me know if you'd rather not share your email address, that's absolutely fine. I'll give you a day or two and then I'll put you all in touch. And I know Eibhlín mentioned she could send on her top tips and that kind of thing as well. That would be, I'll share that with you all. And so thanks to all of you for your participation and for sharing so much of yourselves here today, and sparking important conversations as well, which I hope we can continue. And join us back here tomorrow at the same time, when the stage director, John Ramster, is going to speak about stage presence and embodying your performance.